The Great Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by intelligent beings. Its curved walls stretched upward for nearly a mile, decorated with the symbols of 12 ancient species who had ruled the stars for millions of years. Light from 1,000 crystal panels filled the space with a soft golden glow. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated sections, each species in seats designed for their unique bodies. On this particular day, the chamber buzzed with quiet conversation. A new species had requested membership in the council. This was not unusual. Every few thousand years, some civilization would develop faster than light travel and make contact with the greater galactic community. Most were welcomed, studied, and given a small place in the grand order of things that the Valnoxi delegation watched with particular interest. They were ancient beings, insectoid in appearance, with multifaceted eyes that saw in spectrums other species could not imagine. Their scholars had studied 10,000 civilizations. They believed they could understand any species within moments of meeting them. Councillor Vethener, the eldest of the Valnoxi, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully as the human delegation entered the chamber. There were only 3 of them. They walked slowly, looking around at the magnificent architecture with expressions of genuine wonder. They seemed small compared to most species present. Their skin was soft and hairless on their faces. They had no claws, no armored plates, no visible weapons. The leader of the human group was a male called Jack Holloway. He had brown hair that was starting to turn gray at the sides and warm eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He smiled often. Beside him walked a younger female named Kate Murray. She had red hair tied back in a simple style and moved with quiet efficiency. The third human was an older male named Daniel Price, who served as their cultural advisor. Ambassador Holloway approached the central speaking platform and bowed respectfully to each section of the council. His movements were careful and humble. Honored members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice calm and friendly. We come before you as representatives of Earth and the human species. We are grateful for this opportunity to introduce ourselves and to request a place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. Councillor Drakthos of the Crocian shifted in his massive seat. The Crocian were reptilian warriors, each standing nearly 3 meters tall with scales like armor and claws that could tear through metal. They had conquered 100 worlds before joining the council. Drakthos found the small human almost amusing. Tell us of your people, Drakthos rumbled, his voice like stones grinding together. What do you offer the galaxy? Holloway smiled warmly. We are a curious species, Counselor. We love to learn, to explore, to understand. We have scientists who would be honored to share knowledge with your scholars. We have artists who create music and stories. We have engineers who enjoy solving problems. Most of all, we have a deep desire for friendship and cooperation with other beings. The Crocian made a sound that might have been a laugh. And your military? Your weapons? Your conquests? We have a small defense force, Holloway admitted. Enough to protect our colonies from pirates and natural disasters. We have never sought conquest. We believe that cooperation brings greater rewards than conflict. Several delegates exchanged glances. The Volnoxi scholar Vethener leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes studying the human with intense interest. Your species, Vethener said in his clicking, precise voice, what is your evolutionary history? What role did your ancestors play in your world's ecosystem? Holloway paused for just a moment. Lieutenant Murray glanced at him briefly. Then the ambassador smiled again. We evolved as gatherers and social creatures, he said. We survived through cooperation and adaptability. We formed communities, developed language, created tools. Our success came from working together rather than from physical strength. Vethener made a note in his personal database. He had seen this pattern before. Species that evolved from prey animals or peaceful gatherers often developed strong social bonds and diplomatic skills. They made excellent administrators and mediators. They rarely caused trouble. The questioning continued for several hours. The humans answered every question with patience and good humor. When asked about their territorial ambitions, they said they wanted only a small region of space to call home. When asked about their population, they admitted it was modest compared to the great civilizations. When asked about their technology, they demonstrated devices that were functional but unremarkable. By the end of the session, the council had formed its opinion. The humans were a pleasant but ultimately minor species. They posed no threat. They would make agreeable neighbors. Their enthusiasm for diplomacy might even prove useful in resolving disputes between more aggressive civilizations. The vote was nearly unanimous. Humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. They were given a junior seat with limited voting rights. They were assigned a patrol sector near the galactic rim, far from the important trade routes and strategic regions. It was a quiet corner of space that no other species particularly wanted. Ambassador Holloway accepted these terms with gracious thanks. He shook hands with every delegate who offered the gesture, and bowed to those whose customs did not include physical contact. He promised that humanity would be a responsible and cooperative member of the galactic community. Lieutenant Murray walked beside him as they left the chamber. Her expression was as calm and pleasant as always. "They gave us the leftover territory," she said quietly. "The region with the unstable star systems and the difficult navigation routes." Holloway nodded, still smiling. "Yes, they did. And they classified us as a prey-descendant species. Harmless herbivore types. I noticed that." Murray glanced at him. "Should we correct their assumptions?" Holloway was quiet for a moment. They passed through the grand corridors of the council building, past representatives of species that had ruled the stars when humans were still learning to make fire on a small blue planet far away. "No," he said finally. "Let them believe what they want to believe. We came here for peace and friendship. That is what we truly want. There is no need to show them anything else." Murray nodded slowly. "And if someday they force us to show them?" The ambassador's smile remained warm and friendly, but something shifted behind his eyes. Something very old and very patient. "Then they will learn," he said softly. "But let us hope that day never comes." 3 years passed. Humanity proved to be exactly what the council expected. They were friendly, cooperative, and completely harmless. Their small patrol fleet kept their assigned sector safe from minor threats. Their diplomats helped resolve several trade disputes. Their scientists shared knowledge freely. The galaxy welcomed its newest members with polite indifference. And deep in the quiet regions of human space, far from any observation posts or scanner networks, the true fleet of Earth waited in silence. Hundreds of warships that no alien eye had ever seen. Weapons that had never been demonstrated. Soldiers who trained endlessly for a war they hoped would never come. The Predator smiled and waited, wearing its mask of friendship. Atheron Station floated in the darkness between star systems like a jewel suspended in black velvet. It was a neutral trading hub, one of dozens scattered across the galaxy, where species could meet and conduct business without the complications of territorial politics. The station was home to over 40,000 beings from nearly every known civilization. Among them were 217 humans. Most were traders dealing in earth goods that had become surprisingly popular among certain alien species. Coffee, chocolate, and various spices had found eager buyers across 3 sectors. Some humans were engineers who had earned reputations for creative problem-solving. A few dozen were families who had simply wanted to experience life among the stars. Amy Kendall was one of those families. She had brought her daughter Sophie to Atheron Station 6 months ago after her husband passed away. She wanted a fresh start somewhere new, somewhere exciting. Sophie was 7 years old with curly brown hair and her father's bright smile. She loved watching the different aliens pass through the station's corridors. She had already learned to say hello in 4 different languages. On the morning, everything changed. Sophie was eating breakfast in their small apartment, while Amy reviewed trade manifests on her computer. It was a normal day. The station hummed with its usual activity. Ships came and went from the docking bays. Then the alarms began to sound. The Vrek. Dominion had arrived. The Vrek were a species the Galactic Council had rejected centuries ago. They were brutal conquerors who saw other beings as resources to be harvested. Their empire existed outside Council space, raiding and pillaging wherever they could. They had never dared to attack a major Council facility before dawn, until now. 47 Vrek warships surrounded Atheron Station in a matter of minutes. Their fleet commander, a scarred veteran named Krathvalum, broadcast his demands across all frequencies. His voice was harsh and filled with cruel amusement. Attention, creatures of Atheron Station. You are now property of the Vrek Dominion. Half of your population will be selected for labor service. The other half may remain to continue operating this facility under our control. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of the station. You have 1 hour to comply. Panic spread through the station. Species that had lived together peacefully suddenly found themselves facing impossible choices. Some tried to flee in small ships, but Vrek interceptors destroyed them instantly. Others barricaded themselves in their quarters. Knowing it would make no difference, Amy Kendall gathered Sophie in her arms and moved to the human section of the station. The other Earth families had done the same. They huddled together in a cargo bay that had been converted into a community space. Their faces pale with fear. News of the attack reached the Galactic Council within the hour. An emergency session was called immediately. Representatives rushed to the Great Chamber. Their various forms of communication devices, buzzing with updates and demands for action. Ambassador Jack Holloway took a seat in the human section, his expression carefully neutral. Lieutenant Kate Murray sat beside him, her fingers moving across a personal communication device, receiving constant updates from sources the Council did not know about. Councillor Vethanar of the Volnoxy spoke first. His clicking voice echoed through the chamber with scholarly precision. The Vrek have made their demands clear. They want slave labor and control of the station. This is unacceptable, of course, but we must consider our response carefully. The Vrek fleet is substantial. Direct military action could result in massive casualties. Councillor Drakthos of the Crocian growled with frustration. Then, what do you propose, Scholar? That we negotiate with these raiders? Give them what they want? I propose nothing yet, Vethanar replied. I am simply outlining the situation. We have 40,000 lives at stake. Any action must be weighed against that cost. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for immediate military response. Others counseled patience and negotiation. A few quietly suggested that the station might have to be sacrificed to avoid a larger war with the Vrek Dominion. Throughout all of this, Ambassador Holloway remained silent. He sat perfectly still, listening to every argument, his face revealing nothing. Several delegates noticed his unusual quietness, but thought little of it. The humans were a minor species with no significant military. What could they possibly contribute to this discussion? After 6 hours of debate, Councillor Vethanar turned to the human delegation. It was more a gesture of politeness than a genuine request for input. Ambassador Holloway, we have not heard from humanity on this matter. Does your species have a position? Holloway looked up slowly. When he spoke, His voice was quiet but clear. "We have civilians on that station, Counselor. Families. Children." Vethener nodded with what he believed was appropriate sympathy. "Yes, this is regrettable. We will do everything we can to ensure their safety during negotiations." "Negotiations," Holloway repeated. The word hung in the air. Lieutenant Murray leaned close to him and whispered something. Her eyes were fixed on her communication device. Whatever she told him caused a subtle change in the ambassador's posture. He straightened slightly. His shoulders settled back. The friendly warmth in his eyes seemed to drain away, replaced by something cold and focused. Several delegates noticed this change. Counselor Vethener felt a strange sensation he could not identify. It took him a moment to realize what it was. For the first time in his very long life, he was looking at a human who frightened him. "The Council has 12 hours to resolve this situation," Holloway said. His voice was no longer warm. It was flat and precise, like a blade being drawn from its sheath. "After that time, humanity will handle the matter ourselves." Counselor Dracthos laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the chamber. "Handle it? With what? Your patrol boats? Your trade ships? The Vrek have 400 warships now. They have called in reinforcements. Your entire species could not challenge such a force." Holloway turned to face the massive Crocian warrior. He did not smile. He did not blink. 12 hours, he repeated. Then he stood and walked out of the chamber. Lieutenant Murray followed without a word. The council watched them go in confused silence. Some delegates shook their heads at the strange behavior. Others returned to their debate, dismissing the human statement as emotional posturing from a minor species. But Counselor Vethener could not shake the feeling that had gripped him. He had studied 10,000 civilizations. He had seen every type of being the galaxy had produced. He knew what predators looked like, and for just a moment, he had seen something ancient and terrible looking out from behind Ambassador Holloway's eyes. The scholar made a note in his personal database. He marked it as high priority. Then he returned his attention to the debate, trying to convince himself that he had imagined what he saw. 12 hours began to count down. The 12 hours passed slowly for everyone, except the humans. In the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the debate continued without resolution. Delegates argued about strategy, politics, and the acceptable cost of action. The Vonoxy proposed sending a diplomatic team. The Crocian demanded a military response, but could not agree on who would lead it. Smaller species worried about what the Vrek might do to their citizens if provoked. Meanwhile, on Atheron Station, the situation grew worse. Vrek soldiers had boarded the facility and begun separating the population. They moved through the corridors in groups of 10, their gray-skinned forms armored with plates of dark metal. Their eyes were small and cruel, set deep in faces that seemed designed for violence. The human section of the station had been sealed off. Vrek guards stood at every entrance. Inside, Amy Kendall held Sophie close, singing softly to keep the little girl calm. Other families did the same. The adults tried to hide their fear, but children always seemed to sense the truth. An old engineer named Frank Morrison sat near the door, watching the Vrek guards through the small window. He had been a soldier once long ago, before he retired to a quiet life of fixing machines. His hands still remembered how to fight, but his body was too old now. All he could do was watch and wait. "They will come," he said quietly to no one in particular. A young trader named Lisa Park looked at him with desperate hope. "Who?" "The Council." Morrison shook his head slowly. "Not the Council. Our people. They will come." No one asked him how he knew. No one asked who our people were. Something in his voice made questions seem unnecessary. In the council chamber, the 11th hour ended. Ambassador Holloway had not returned. His seat remained empty. Several delegates had tried to contact the human embassy but received no response. Counselor Vethner felt increasingly uneasy. He had requested additional information about human military capabilities from the Council's database. The records showed a small patrol fleet of modest vessels, nothing that could challenge even a minor wreck raiding party. But something about those records bothered him. They were too clean, too simple. Every other species had complications in their military history. The humans apparently had none. The 12th hour began deep in the Atheron system, far from the station and the wreck fleet. Space itself seemed to tear open. A hole appeared in the fabric of reality, burning with energy that sensors could not properly measure. Something came through. Then another hole opened. And another. And another. The wreck sensor operator stared at his screens with growing confusion. Commander Krathvalum, we are detecting hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. How many? The commander asked without much interest. He expected council ships, diplomatic vessels, come to beg for mercy. The sensor operator's voice changed. Fear crept into it like cold water. 50 signatures. No, 100. 200. Commander, there are over 200 ships incoming. Krathvalum turned sharply. Show me. The main view screen switched to a long-range image. Against the black of space, shapes were emerging from the hyperspace portals. Ships unlike anything in the Council's records. They were angular and dark, built for violence with no pretense of anything else. Their hulls absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Weapons arrays lined their surfaces like the spines of some terrible creature. At the center of the formation was a ship larger than anything Krathvalum had ever seen. It stretched for over a kilometer, a predator of metal and fury. Its design had no curved lines, no gentle shapes. Everything about it spoke of death. What species built those vessels? Krathvalum demanded. His tactical officer worked frantically at his station. Running identification now. Commander, the design matches no known species. Wait, there is a marker. A broadcast identification. Show me. Words appeared on the screen in the common galactic language. They identified the fleet's origin, United Earth Defense Force. The flagship's name was USS Ascendant. Commander Krathvalum felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare. He felt doubt. That is impossible, he said. The humans have no military. Our intelligence confirmed this. Sir, they are broadcasting on all frequencies. Audio and visual. Let me hear it. The voice that filled the wreck command bridge was calm and cold. It belonged to a human male who spoke with the precision of someone who had long ago stopped needing to raise his voice to be frightening. This is Commander Derek Shaw of the United Earth Defense Force to all wreck vessels. You have taken human civilians hostage. You have threatened human children. You have exactly 60 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender unconditionally. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. 59. 58. Krathval's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile or a snarl. They dare threaten us? With half our numbers? All ships, battle formation. Weapons online. We will teach these soft creatures the price of arrogance. The wreck fleet moved into combat positions. 400 warships against just over 200 human vessels. The math was simple. The outcome was certain. In the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the delegates watched in stunned silence. Someone had activated the emergency long-range sensors, broadcasting the confrontation on the main display screens. Every being in the chamber saw the human fleet arrive. Every being saw the size and shape of ships that should not exist. Ambassador Holloway had returned to his seat. Lieutenant Murray stood beside him. Neither of them watched the screens. They watched the other delegates instead. Counselor Vethner turned to the human. Ambassador with something close to accusation in his voice. You said you had no military. You said you were a peaceful species. We are peaceful, Holloway replied. His voice was pleasant again, but it no longer seemed warm. We prefer peace above all things. We did not lie about that. Then what is that fleet? That is what happens when peace is not an option. On the screens, Commander Shaw's countdown reached 0. The Vrek fleet opened fire. The Vrek fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy weapons lit up the darkness of space. A wall of destruction aimed at the human formation. The human ships moved. They moved in ways that should not have been possible. They dodged and weaved through the incoming fire with a coordination that seemed almost alive. Their formation shifted and flowed like water on stone's dot, and then they fired back. The first Vrek cruiser exploded before its crew even understood what had hit them. Then another. Then 5 more. The human weapons tore through Vrek shields like they did not exist. Each shot was precise, targeted, devastating. Lieutenant Murray leaned close to Ambassador Holloway. The Marines have launched. They will reach the station in 7 minutes. Holloway nodded slowly. The children? Still alive. The Vrek are using them as shields. They think it will protect them. Something flickered across the ambassador's face. It was there and gone in less than a second, but Counselor Vethener saw it. It was rage. Pure, absolute, and completely controlled. Then let us show them how wrong they are, Holloway said softly. On the screens, the battle continued. The Vrek fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming just minutes ago, was being systematically destroyed, and the human ships had not yet lost a single vessel. The battle in space lasted 11 minutes. The Galactic Council watched every second of it. Their sensors recorded data that would be studied for centuries. Their scholars tried to understand what they were seeing, but understanding seemed impossible. The human ships fought like nothing the galaxy had ever witnessed. They moved as a single organism, each vessel knowing exactly where the others would be. When Vrek formations tried to concentrate fire on one target, the target was never there. When Vrek ships tried to retreat, human vessels were already waiting to cut them off. The USS Ascendant alone destroyed 30 Vrek cruisers. Commander Derek Shaw directed the battle from its bridge with a voice that never rose above conversational levels. He gave orders calmly, precisely, as if the chaos of combat was nothing more than a routine exercise. But the space battle was not. What truly horrified the Council? That came later, when the Marines boarded Atheron Station. The first wave of human soldiers breached the station through 6 entry points simultaneously. 53 soldiers against over 2,000 Vrek troops. The numbers should have made the outcome obvious. The numbers meant nothing. Sergeant Major Ben Torres led the primary assault team. He was a compact man with dark hair and eyes that had seen too much death to be surprised by anything. He had served in conflicts across human space for 20 years. He had hoped to retire soon, to find somewhere quiet and live out his remaining years in peace. Then the Vrek had taken children hostage. And Ben Torres remembered why he had become a soldier in the first place. His team entered through an emergency airlock on Deck 7. They moved in silence, their weapons raised, their footsteps making no sound. The first Vrek patrol they encountered died before anyone could call for help. 8 soldiers eliminated in 4 seconds. Torres and his team did not slow down. On Deck 12, a Vrek squad had barricaded themselves in a cargo bay. They had heard the sounds of fighting and taken defensive positions. There were 20 of them, heavily armed, watching every entrance. Torres used a thermal charge to blow through the wall they were not watching. His team poured through the gap, firing with mechanical precision. The Vrek returned fire desperately, but their shots hit nothing. The humans moved too fast, too unpredictably. It was like trying to shoot shadows. 18 seconds later, the cargo bay was silent. The station's security system recorded everything. Those recordings would later become the most studied military footage in galactic history. Analysts would slow them down, frame by frame, trying to understand how the humans fought. They moved in constant motion, never stopping, never presenting stable targets. Their aim was perfect, even while running, jumping, sliding through doorways. They communicated without words, each soldier knowing exactly what the others were doing through some combination of training and instinct that defied explanation. But what truly disturbed the analysts was the humans' efficiency. They did not waste ammunition. They did not make unnecessary kills. Every shot, every movement served a purpose. They were not fighting out of rage or bloodlust. They were simply solving a problem with ruthless practicality. In the council chamber, Lieutenant Kate Murray watched the tactical display with calm attention. She had served in the same unit as Torres years ago. She knew what was happening on that station better than anyone else in the room. Counselor Drakthos of the Crocian leaned forward, his reptilian eyes fixed on the screens. The Crocian were warriors. They understood combat. What they were seeing should not have been possible. How are they doing this? He demanded. The humans are smaller, weaker, fewer in number. How are they winning? Murray answered without looking away from the display. We do not win by being stronger, Counselor. We win by being more determined. We win by refusing to stop. Our ancestors survived on a world that tried to kill them every day. They chased prey across continents until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They fought predators with sharp sticks and lived to tell stories about it. She paused as another section of the station turned green on the tactical display, indicating human control. We have spent thousands of years learning how to hunt, how to fight, how to survive. Every generation passed that knowledge to the next. Every war taught us new lessons. We remember all of them. On Deck 17, Sergeant Torres and his team reached the area where the Vrek had gathered the human hostages. Intelligence indicated that the children were being held in a converted meeting room. Vrek soldiers surrounded them, using them as shields against any rescue attempt. The Vrek commander in charge of the hostages was named Krathanol, a cousin to the fleet commander. He had expected the council to negotiate. He had expected fear and desperation. He had not expected humans to blow through his defenses. Like they were made of paper. Torres approached the meeting room from 3 directions at once. His team had split into smaller groups, each moving through the station's maintenance corridors. The Vrek guards never saw them coming. The first 4 guards fell in a single coordinated strike. Torres came through the main door as his team emerged from access panels and ventilation shafts. The Vrek soldiers scrambled to respond, grabbing hostages, shouting threats. Krathanol held a blade to the throat of a small human girl with curly brown hair. Sophie Kendall stared up at him with tears running down her face, too scared to make a sound. "Stop!" Krathanol screamed at the humans. "Stop or I will kill this one. I will kill them all." Torres kept walking forward. He did not raise his weapon. He did not slow down. His eyes locked onto the Vrek commander with an intensity that made the alien's blood run cold. "You are going to die in the next 3 seconds," Torres said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Nothing you do will change that. The only question is whether I make it quick or slow." Krathanol pressed the blade harder against Sophie's throat. A thin line of red appeared on her skin. Torres shot him through the eye. The Vrek commander fell backward, the blade dropping from his lifeless fingers. Torres caught Sophie before she could fall, scooping her up with one arm while his other hand put 2 more rounds into. Vrek soldiers trying to use other hostages as shields. His team finished the room in less than 10 seconds. Every Vrek died. Not one hostage was harmed further. Torres held Sophie against his chest. The same hands that had killed 18 enemies in close combat cradled her with infinite gentleness. He checked her wound, determined it was superficial, and looked into her frightened eyes. "You are safe now," he said softly. "We have got you. Everything is going to be okay." Amy Kendall rushed forward from where the hostages had been held. Torres handed Sophie to her mother without a word. Amy clutched her daughter and sobbed with relief, whispering thanks that could barely be heard. Torres nodded once, then turned back to his team. "Deck 17 secure," he reported into his communication device. "All hostages recovered. 0 civilian casualties." In the council chamber, the delegates heard this report through the broadcast channels. They saw the aftermath through the station's security feeds. They watched a human soldier who had just killed nearly 24 enemies with terrifying efficiency, now kneeling beside a crying child, offering comfort with the same focus he had brought to combat. "Counselor." Vethener made a sound that his species produced when confronted with something that challenged their fundamental understanding of the universe. Ambassador Holloway sat in his chair, his expression unchanged. "Do you understand now?" he asked quietly. "We are not what you thought we were. We are not weak. We are not harmless. We choose to be peaceful because we have seen what we become when peace is not possible. We wear the mask of friendship because the face beneath it frightens even us." The battle in space was ending. The wreck fleet had been reduced to 40 ships, all of them trying desperately to flee. The human formation let them go. The lesson had been taught. On the station, Torres finished securing the area. He looked down at his hands, still stained with the blood of enemies. Then he looked at Sophie, now safe in her mother's arms. "This is why we fight," he thought. "This is why we do not stop." The predator retreated behind the mask. But everyone had seen what lay beneath. 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council reconvened. The Great Chamber felt different now. The lights seemed colder. The magnificent architecture seemed less impressive. Every delegate who entered glanced toward the human section with expressions that ranged from curiosity to fear to something approaching respect. The Vrek Dominion had surrendered unconditionally. Their surviving fleet commanders had been captured and would face trial for crimes against sapient beings. Intelligence reports indicated that the Dominion itself was collapsing from within. Word of what the humans had done spread across their empire like fire. Slave populations were rising up. Military commanders were refusing to fight. Everyone had seen what happened to those who threatened humanity. Ambassador Jack Holloway entered the chamber with Lieutenant Kate Murray at his side. He was wearing his pleasant smile again, the one he had worn when humanity first requested membership in the Council 3 years ago. It looked different now. Everyone knew what lay behind it. The delegates watched him take his seat in the human section. No one spoke until Councilor Drakthos of the Crocian rose to address the chamber. Ambassador Holloway, the massive reptilian warrior, said, his voice heavy with something between anger and admiration, "You deceived us. You hid your true capabilities. You lied about your military strength." Holloway remained calm. "We did not lie, Counselor. We stated that we had a small defense force and preferred peace. Both of those things were true. You simply made assumptions about what those words meant. You allowed us to believe you were a minor species. You decided that on your own. We never claimed to be minor. We never claimed to be weak. We simply did not correct your conclusions." Drakthos's claws scraped against his chair. "Why? Why hide what you are?" Holloway was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but carried through the entire chamber. "Because we have seen what we are capable of, Counselor. We carry the memory of our own history. We remember the wars we fought against each other before we reached the stars. We remember the weapons we built, the destruction we caused, the millions who died because of our capacity for violence. He stood, and despite being the smallest ambassador in the room, every eye was drawn to him. We came to the galaxy hoping to be different. We wanted to leave that history behind. We wanted to prove to ourselves, as much as anyone else, that we could be builders instead of destroyers, creators instead of warriors. We hid our military because we were ashamed of needing it. We wore the mask of friendship because we genuinely wanted friendship to be the truth. Councillor Vethaner of the Velnoxy leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with the light of scientific curiosity mixed with something deeper. "And now?" he asked. "Now that we have seen what lies beneath the mask?" Holloway turned to face the ancient scholar directly. "Now you know the truth. We are not descended from prey animals or peaceful gatherers. We are persistence predators. Our ancestors survived by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They hunted in packs and communicated across distances. They developed tools specifically designed for killing. They domesticated wolves by being better hunters than the wolves were." He began to walk slowly around the central speaking platform, addressing each section of the council in turn. We had not become the dominant species of our planet through strength. There were animals far stronger than us. We did not survive through speed. Many creatures could outrun us over short distances. We survived through endurance, through cooperation, through an absolute unbreakable refusal to ever stop pursuing a goal once we had decided to achieve it. He paused in front of the Crocian delegation. Councillor Dractos was nearly 3 times his height, armored with scales that could deflect blade and bullet. Holloway looked up at him without any sign of being intimidated. "You asked how our soldiers defeated enemies who outnumbered them. The answer is simple. When a human decides to fight, they do not calculate odds. They do not consider retreat. They commit everything they have and everything they are to victory. They will sacrifice themselves without hesitation. They will endure wounds that would cripple other species. They will fight until they win or until there is nothing left of them to fight with." He turned away from the Crocian and addressed the full chamber again. "This is what we are. This is what we have always been. We did not choose to be predators. Evolution made that choice for us. But we chose to seek peace. We chose to offer friendship. Those choices are real. They come from who we want to be, not from what we were born to be." Lieutenant Murray handed him a data tablet. He placed it on the central display, activating a holographic projection that showed maps, statistics, fleet positions. "This is the truth about humanity's military. Every human vessel is armed. Every human colony has defenses you have never detected. Our main fleet was hidden because we hoped we would never need to reveal it. We have trained for war every day since our species first learned that other civilizations existed, because we knew that someday someone might force us to use what we are." The chamber was completely silent. Not one delegate moved. "We have spent 3 years proving that we can be good neighbors, good partners. We have helped resolve disputes. We have shared our knowledge. We have asked for nothing except the chance to be part of something larger than ourselves." Holloway's expression softened slightly. For just a moment, he looked tired, old, like someone who had carried a heavy weight for a very long time. "We would like to continue being your friends. We would like to spend the next 1,000 years proving that humanity can be trusted, that we can be kind, that we can build and create and contribute to the galaxy without ever having to show our teeth again." He straightened his shoulders. "But you need to understand something. Our children are not negotiable. Our families are not pawns to be used in political calculations. If anyone threatens the people we love, we will not wait for council approval. We will not engage in extended debate. We will respond with everything we have and everything we are, and we will not stop until the threat no longer exists. He looked around the chamber one final time. We are humanity. We prefer peace. We hope for friendship. But we are what we are. And now you know. Ambassador Holloway returned to his seat. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Counselor Vethiner rose. The ancient Velnoxy scholar walked slowly to the speaking platform, his movements careful and deliberate. I have studied 10,000 civilizations, he said. I have watched species rise and fall across millions of years. I believed I understood the patterns of intelligent life. I believed I knew what shape survival could take. He turned to face the human delegation. I was wrong. Humanity is something new. Not because of your military strength, though that is considerable. Not because of your technology, though it is more advanced than we realized. You are new because you have made a choice that most species never consider. You have looked at what you are, at the violence in your nature, and you have chosen to be something else despite it. The Velnoxy made a gesture that among his species indicated profound respect. The mask of friendship is not a deception. It is an aspiration. It is the version of yourselves that you fight to become. And that, Ambassador Holloway, is perhaps the most remarkable thing I have witnessed in all my years of study. Counselor Dractos stood next. The massive Croatian warrior looked at Holloway for a long moment, then performed a gesture that no human had ever seen from a Croatian. He lowered his head slightly. My people respect strength, Dractos said. We always have. But strength alone is not enough to earn our honor. Many species are strong. What we honor is the wisdom to control that strength, the discipline to choose when and how to use it. He raised his head. Humanity has shown both. I support their elevation to permanent senior membership in this council. The vote was unanimous. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many of them stopped to speak with Ambassador Holloway. Some offered congratulations. Some asked questions about human culture and history. A few simply stood nearby, as if trying to understand through proximity what they could not comprehend through logic. Lieutenant Murray walked beside Holloway as they left the building. The stars were visible overhead, countless points of light in the darkness. Somewhere out there, the human fleet had returned to its hidden positions. Somewhere out there, Atheron Station was being repaired, its people recovering from their ordeal. Somewhere out there, a little girl named Sophie was learning that humans had come to save her. Do you think they understand now? Murray asked. Holloway looked up at the stars. His expression was peaceful, but there was something ancient and watchful in his eyes. They understand enough, he said. They understand that we want peace. They understand that we will fight to protect our own. They understand that the friendly smile is genuine, but so is what lies beneath it. He began walking toward the human embassy. And perhaps that is all they need to understand. Perhaps that is enough. Across the galaxy, species who had dismissed the soft, friendly humans began updating their diplomatic protocols. Trade agreements were renegotiated. Military assessments were revised. Everyone had seen what happened when humanity was pushed too far. The predator had shown its teeth. And somehow, impossibly, that made